Hi, and welcome to my second video on how to write a great story. I'm LW Greenwood, and today we're talking about mainstream versus underground. You probably don't know what I'm talking about, but basically mainstream and underground are just terms I use to describe what people want, what people don't want. Now, obviously mainstream is what people want. Underground isn't that they don't want it, it's that they never really asked for it. And it doesn't mean that it won't be popular, it just means that they, uh, it's not something that they expected. And obviously, you kind of want to go for what's not expected, but it can also be a bad thing. Let's talk about mainstream first. First of all, mainstream is obviously what people want. And if you're going to go for what people want, let's say you want to write a story similar to Lord of the Rings. You see, when people watch a story like Lord of the Rings or read a story like Lord of the Rings, they think, "Oh, this is so great! I want to know more. I want to read more about this kind of world." Or obviously, they're not going to get it from J.R.R. Tolkien, so they might go to another author and whatever. But then they read it and they go, "Ah, oh, man, that was just a cliche. It was just the Lord of the Rings retold." Even though that's what they asked for, they're not happy with it, and that's your biggest problem with trying to go mainstream. Is that you run the risk of writing a cliche, because what are they asking for? A cliche. And if you're going to give them what they want, then it's hard to avoid cliches. Look at Aragorn. Christopher Paolini, he did a pretty good job writing this story, but he was doing exactly that, giving people what they wanted. He gave them a Lord of the Rings style world in basically a Star Wars storyline. I mean, the star. He was the last Dragon Rider. Luke was the last Jedi. They were both foretold by legend to bring peace to the world universe and defeat the evil overlord. And it goes even more than that. It was just there were so many cliches in the story that it never really became popular. Even though it had one movie, people didn't really want to watch another one. So I'm you run the risk of doing that if you write a mainstream story. Even if you do gain some popularity, it's not really going to be lasting popularity, I guess. Um, but I've got a lot of Jerry Bruckheimer movies, honestly. Let's see. Uh, if you're going to write an underground story, now underground stories, as I said, is not exactly what people want. I like to point at The Matrix for this one because although it was popular and although it kind of had it did have a very cliched storyline, what it did have was a very new and strange premise. The idea of these machines taking over the world and then basically becoming completely dependent on the humans to power themselves. I mean, they were using the brain power, so they put them in the matrix so that their brains were more active than if they were just, unconscious or whatever, and basically, using humans as a power source. This had really never been seen before. I mean, obviously, you had things like Tron where people were in a computer, but it was a little different. And this was so new and so interesting that people just went, stood up, and, whoa, that's cool. We want to see this. And the first one was great. It was epic. It was incredibly popular. And of course, the second and third ones ended up being a little more cliched, just the same old story, and they weren't as popular. I mean, they were good, and people liked them, but they just didn't have that glamour, that amazing shock value of the first one. And as I said, with Underground, that's what you're trying to go for. It's kind of that shock and awe thing, and it's supposed to be a little weird, and it's supposed to be like they're not asking for this. You're presenting it to them as this new and weird idea, and that's also the problem. If you present them with this weird and new idea that's so weird and new that people go, "Oh, I don't want to," no way, and if you write uh, if you do happen to write a story that people like, it can become incredibly popular, like The Matrix. But anyway, as for suggestions, if you're gonna go mainstream, avoid cliches, especially ones like the one idea, the one where he's foretold by legend to defeat the Overlord. The Matrix, Aragorn, Star Wars. There's a few others out there, but they all have this idea. And although it can be a very popular idea and a very interesting idea, it's also been done too much, especially by those franchises. The fact is that you want to try and, I mean, it's all right to have your main character defeat the evil overlord or whatever. Just try not to have him foretold by legend. Just have him a normal guy. That's as simple as that to avoid the one idea. Um, if you're going to go underground, uh, come up with a strange idea. It doesn't matter how strange it is. Just try to avoid things that are going to turn people off. Like maybe, I don't know, taboo things like maybe marrying your sister. I don't know. That's not going to be a story that's very good and that people are not really going to like. Um, I don't know. If you're, it's just something to keep in mind. This really doesn't matter as far as when you're writing the story. Just keep it in mind and keep in mind what do people want. What are they asking for? What maybe are they not asking for? Um, so anyway, I guess I'll go ahead and do my impromptu plot right now. And since we're kind of talking about underground and mainstream, I'm gonna go ahead and go with one that might be a little more underground. So let's say we'll go with a woman character this time, and she's in this world where the world is at war, and obviously they're fighting each other, but she can't go into the war because she's a woman. Of course, she doesn't like that, and she decides to uh, dress up as a man, go to war, and then ends up fighting and saving a bunch of guys. Of course, I have to say, as I'm telling this, that there are a few out there. And Monstrous Regiment by Terry Pratchett, and let's see, Mulan. Yeah, so I can't really say that's an underground one, but it does make for an interesting story. To make it a little more underground, maybe can't really think of anything that would make it underground. I was gonna say like space aliens or something, but unfortunately that's been done too. I mean, they've all been done. Um, maybe here's one. Go the other way around. Instead of a woman getting into a man's world, into uh, a war or something, maybe have a man end up going into the woman's world, maybe into a life of servitude, just to see what it's like. Maybe he dresses up as a maid and works for a rich guy or something. I don't know. It would mostly be for a comedy, I think, but you could make it a serious story if you wanted. I don't know. Uh, I guess that's about it. Go ahead and go to my next video, which is the 7 types of stories. Thanks for watching. Keep on writing if you are writing, are a writer.